I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. I always believed in the idea of marriage, the kind of loyalty that's supposed to stand through thick and thin. But life has a sick way of throwing curveballs, and I learned that the hard way with my wife, Lisa. We'd been together for over 10 years, married for 8, and from the outside everything seemed fine. She was a little bitchy at times, sure, but I chalked that up to her being a typical high-maintenance wife who liked things her way. Still, I loved her. Or at least I thought I did. Things started to feel off about 6 months ago. She became increasingly distant, always busy with work, which I didn't suspect at first. She'd come home late, excuse herself frequently for doctor's appointments, and was always really secretive about her phone. If I ever asked to see it, she'd brush me off, say I was being paranoid or insecure. That's when I noticed her phone was always locked, even when she was in the next room. She'd hide it whenever I looked her way. I figured maybe she was just tired or stressed about her job, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Looking back, I should have seen the signs earlier. She'd be overly defensive when I asked about her plans, and her attitude towards me became more dismissive. I'd catch her texting someone late at night, but she'd quickly shove her phone aside or claim she was just talking to her sister. I remember one night catching her trying to hide her phone when I walked into the bedroom. She stammered, told me it was just business stuff, but I could see the text messages, nothing explicit, just vague, flirtatious comments that made my stomach turn. That was the first time a seed of doubt really took root. Then came the real wake-up call. My wife, Lisa, had always been obsessed with her appearance, but she started dressing up even more, wearing clothes that were a little too revealing for my taste. She'd go out with friends, but the stories didn't add up. One night after she'd gone out, I decided to check her phone again, just to see if maybe I was imagining things. I found a string of messages from someone named Mike, and the tone was unmistakably flirtatious, even intimate. They'd been exchanging pictures, mostly of her in lingerie, and talking about meeting up. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. My stomach sank. I waited until she got home to confront her. When she walked in, all bubbly and acting like she had no idea what I was talking about, I felt the rage bubbling up. I showed her the messages. Her face twisted into a sneer and she rolled her eyes. "Oh, please," she snapped. "That's nothing. It's just some guy from work trying to flirt. You're so insecure, it's pathetic." I could see through her lies. I knew she was lying, but I also knew I needed to hear it straight from her. I demanded she tell me the truth, and she just laughed, saying I was overreacting and that I was paranoid. That's when I realized. I was married to someone who'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. All the signs, all the subtle hints, they were warnings I ignored, and now I was paying the price. After the initial confrontation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept replaying her words, her dismissive laugh, her eye rolls, and the sight of those damn messages. Honestly, I was furious, but at the same time, I was heartbroken. I never thought Lisa could do something like this to me. We had our issues, sure, but I always believed we were stronger than that. Turns out I was naive. In the days that followed, I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I saw her, I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. I started obsessively going through her phone, her emails, her social media. I needed to find out just how deep this thing went. And it didn't take long. I found more evidence, secret texts, pictures, plans to meet up. She'd been sneaking around behind my back for months, probably even longer. I felt sick knowing I'd been completely blind to it all. I wondered how many nights she'd been out, how many lies I'd swallowed. One night I decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was okay when it clearly was. I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding. I told her I knew everything. I told her I'd seen the messages, the pictures, everything. Her reaction was infuriating. She scoffed at me, rolled her eyes again, and said I was overreacting, that she was only talking to this Mike guy because he was just a friend. She called me insecure and jealous, as if that was supposed to make everything okay. I told her I was done listening to her lies. I wanted the truth, straight up. I demanded she tell me everything, and that's when she finally admitted, with a dismissive shrug, that she'd been seeing Mike for a few months. Hearing her say it out loud was like a punch to the gut. I felt like I'd been punched so hard I saw stars. I asked her why she did it, how she could betray me like that. And her answer, "Because you're a terrible husband. You're never around, you don't pay attention to me, and you're boring as hell. Mike makes me feel alive, something you clearly couldn't do anymore." That's when I realized how much she hated our marriage, how much she wanted to throw it all away just to chase some cheap thrill with an outsider. It hurt so bad that I wanted to scream, but I just sat there stunned. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. All those years I worked my ass off trying to give her a good life, and she was out there cheating on me. I thought about the times I was tired and tried to be patient, and she just dismissed me like I was nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. Her words kept echoing in my mind, and I started to question everything. Was I really that terrible a husband? Had I missed the signs? Or was she just always this kind of person, hiding her true self behind a smokescreen of caregiver counseling sessions and fake smiles? I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let her get away with it. I had to find a way to fix this or end it for good. I couldn't keep living with the betrayal, the lies, the constant feeling of being played. I promised myself that I'd come up with a plan, some kind of response that would make her regret ever crossing me. But right now, all I felt was a mixture of sadness and rage, ready to explode at any moment. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I needed to do something drastic, something to make her pay, to make her understand just how badly she'd messed up. I wasn't about to be some cuckold sitting around while she went out screwing some other guy. No way. I decided I would take control of the situation, but I had to be smart about it. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, to understand that her actions had consequences. I started by digging into her phone, looking for more evidence, but I knew I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed a plan. I spent days gathering everything, screenshots, messages, even some of her old emails from those caregiver counseling sessions she claimed were innocent. I also did some digging online trying to find out about Mike, who he was, how long they'd known each other, whether there was more to the story. I wasn't just gonna confront her and leave it at that. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I had all the cards. Meanwhile, Lisa continued to act like everything was normal. She'd come home, act sweet, then snap at me or roll her eyes like I was the biggest idiot alive. She didn't even try to hide her disdain anymore. It was like she enjoyed pushing me, making me feel inferior. That only fueled my determination. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, not anymore. I decided that I'd hit her where it hurt most, her ego, her pride, her sense of control. One evening I set up a little trap. I left my phone in the living room with a recording app running secretly, just in case she decided to slip up. I knew she'd probably lie, deny everything, but I wanted proof. Sure enough, a couple of nights later, I heard her on the recording talking to someone, probably Mike, about meeting up that very night, about keeping it secret but having fun. Hearing her admit it so casually made my blood boil. She sounded so smug, like she was untouchable. That was the moment I realized I had to act fast. I decided I'd use the evidence to confront her again, but this time on my terms. I wanted her to see I wasn't just some patsy she could manipulate anymore. I planned to lay everything bare, her lies, her cheating, her sneering attitude, and make her face the consequences. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be betrayed, to be humiliated, to be completely powerless. The thought of revenge started to consume me, and I knew I couldn't back down now. I had to make her regret ever messing with me, because if I didn't, I'd be the one losing everything. My dignity, my marriage, my sense of self. I kept that recording in my phone, ready to use it at the right moment. I knew confronting her directly was risky, but I also knew I couldn't keep living with this secret hanging over my head. The next move would be critical. I had to choose my moment carefully. I spent those days pretending everything was okay, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was boiling with rage and heartbreak. I kept asking myself, how did it get this far? Was I so blind? Did I really mean nothing to her? Or was she always this selfish, this hurtful? All I knew was that I'd be damned if I let her get away with it without a fight. The moment I finally decided to confront her was like walking a tightrope without a safety net. I knew I had the evidence, I knew I had her lying on tape, but actually doing it, facing her face to face and revealing everything. I wasn't sure I was ready for the fallout. Still, I couldn't keep pretending to be okay. The betrayal had cut too deep and I needed closure, even if that meant tearing everything apart. One evening, I told her I needed to talk. She looked annoyed but didn't protest much, probably sensing I was about to drop something heavy. We sat in the living room, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I pulled out my phone, played the recording I'd made, and let her hear her own voice admitting they'd been doing more than just texting. Her face froze in disbelief, then quickly twisted into anger, denial, and outright contempt. She scoffed, said it was all a mistake, that she was just curious, that nothing ever happened. That's when I cut her off. "Save it," I said. "I've had enough. You lied to my face for months, and now I see what kind of person you really are. You're a cheat, Lisa. You've been screwing around with Mike behind my back while pretending everything was fine. How long has this been going on? Did you even care about me, or was I just some fool you settled for?" Her eyes narrowed and she looked at me like I was a complete idiot. "You're overreacting," she spat. "I don't know what kind of crazy story you're trying to spin, but I've done nothing wrong. I was just talking to Mike because I was lonely. You're so insecure, it's pathetic. You're making this into some big thing when it's really just your own issues." She then launched into a tirade about how I never paid enough attention to her, how I was boring, how she deserved better. It was classic Lisa: blame everyone else for her mistakes, deny everything, and act like she's the victim. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Hearing her lie with that much conviction made me realize how much she'd mastered the art of manipulation. I felt my blood boil and my hands shake. I told her she was disgusting, that I couldn't believe I ever trusted her. I told her I wasn't going to sit around and be played like some fool. I wanted her to see the damage she caused, to feel the weight of her actions. I told her I was done, that I was leaving her, that I wasn't going to be a part of her life anymore if she kept up this crap. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She started crying, but not because she was sorry. No, it was that fake crying that's more about manipulating you than genuine remorse. She sneered through her tears, called me possessive, paranoid, and said I was jealous because I don't love her anymore. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just paranoid, that she deserved someone better than me. I felt a mix of disgust, anger, and crushing sadness. I realized at that moment that I was never going to get the truth from her, at least not honestly. She had built a wall of lies so thick, nothing I said or did would break through. I looked at her then and knew I couldn't keep living like this. I told her I was leaving, that I wanted her out of the house, and she just sat there silent, with this look on her face like she already knew she'd won something. But she hadn't won, she'd just sealed her own fate. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and walked out that door, leaving her behind, still crying, still denying everything. It hurt more than I thought it would, seeing her so cold and unapologetic, but I knew I had made the right choice. I couldn't keep living in a lie, and I refused to be anyone's fool anymore. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I felt a strange mixture of relief and despair. I'd finally faced her, laid everything out, and taken control. But inside, I was shattered. The person I loved, the person I trusted, had betrayed me so deeply I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again. Still, I told myself that I'd survive this, that I'd rebuild somehow. I just didn't know how yet. All I knew was that I'd never let someone make a fool out of me again. The days after I kicked her out were a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, relief, and a strange sense of clarity. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to make sense of how I had missed all the signs, how I had trusted someone who clearly never valued me the way I thought she did. At first, I felt like a complete failure, like I'd been so blind that I deserved everything I got. But slowly, I started realizing that her betrayal said more about her than it did about me. I had loved her, yes, but I hadn't deserved to be treated like some fool, lied to and used. The first few nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneering, her tears fake or real, whatever they were. I wondered about all the things I could have done differently, all the moments I'd missed. But then I started to get angry. Angry at her for tearing apart what we had, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, and angry at that bastard Mike for thinking he could just swoop in and take my wife. I also realized that I needed to do something for myself. I couldn't let her betrayal define me. So I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the pain. I also started therapy, just to get some perspective and keep from going completely off the rails. In my sessions, I talked openly about everything: her lies, the betrayal, the feeling of impotence that had overtaken me. It helped, surprisingly. It gave me some clarity and pushed me to focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to contact me. At first, I ignored her calls and texts. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her lies, or her false apologies. But eventually, I responded just once, telling her that I didn't want to hear from her unless it was to discuss the divorce. She begged, pleaded, even accused me of being overly dramatic, but I didn't care. I knew I had to cut ties completely. If I was going to move on, I needed to cut her out of my life entirely. Anything less would be a mistake. The most surprising part, though, was what happened with her after I moved out. I heard from mutual friends that she was already talking about how I was too insecure, how she needed her freedom, and how I was possessive for confronting her about the affair. It was classic Lisa, always twisting the truth to make herself look like the victim. I wasn't surprised. That's what she did best. But what did surprise me was how much better I started to feel, even just a few weeks after she left. I felt lighter, freer, like I was finally breathing again, even if the ache in my chest was still there. Deep down, I knew I'd probably never fully trust her again, and honestly, I didn't want to. The woman who cheated on me, who lied so effortlessly, was no longer the woman I thought I knew. I had to accept that this was the end of our story. And as much as it hurt, I also knew it was a new beginning. I was going to rebuild my life, learn to trust again, and find happiness on my own terms. Because if there's one thing this mess taught me, it's that you can't let someone's betrayal define you. You have to take charge of your own story, no matter how hard it is. I've learned a lot from this experience, about trust, about boundaries, about the importance of listening to your gut. And I'd tell anyone else in this position, don't ignore the signs. Don't settle for someone who lies and cheats. No matter how much you love them. Because in the end, the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. And if they betray you, don't hesitate to cut them out and start over. Trust me, it's the only way to heal. Looking back now, I realize that this whole ordeal changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I felt broken, like I'd lost a part of myself that I'd never get back. But gradually, I started to piece myself together. It's not like I woke up one day perfectly fine, far from it. There are still nights when I lie awake, thinking about what I went through, what I lost, and what I gained. The trust was shattered, but somehow I found a way to rebuild my confidence, my boundaries, and most importantly, my sense of self-worth. The thing I've learned most from all of this is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals what really matters. I used to think that marriage was about loyalty and sticking through the tough times. Turns out it's more about respect and honesty, things I thought Lisa had, but clearly she didn't. Now I know I'll never tolerate that kind of betrayal again. I refuse to be anyone's fool, and I refuse to accept lies as part of a relationship. What's been most shocking is how quickly life can change when you realize the truth. One day, everything is normal, your routines, your hopes, your trust, and the next, it's all turned upside down. But in that chaos, I found clarity. I saw who I really was, and I learned that I am stronger than I thought. I don't need someone lying to me or treating me like I'm disposable. I deserve honesty and respect, and I refuse to settle for anything less. To anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation, I'd say this: don't ignore the signs. Don't brush off that little voice inside your head telling you something's wrong. Confront it, face it head on. Because if you don't, you might wake up one day with everything gone: your trust, your dignity, your self-esteem. It's hard, I won't lie. It hurts like hell. But it's also necessary. You have to put yourself first. You have to realize that your happiness and respect matter more than keeping someone around who doesn't value you. In the end, I'm grateful for what I've gone through. It's made me more cautious, more self-aware, and maybe even a little wiser. I've learned that sometimes the only way to truly move forward is to cut ties completely and start fresh. That's what I did, and I have no regrets. Because even after all the pain, I found a way to stand up, dust myself off, and keep going. The future's uncertain, sure, but it's also mine now. And I plan to live it with honesty, integrity, and a whole lot more self-respect than I ever had before.